magnetic particle testing belongs to non-destructive testing. So already you have seen fatigue testing machine, or already you have that part you have finished the fatigue testing. Even bending also we finished, where specimen is broken into two pieces or bent, or it is destroyed. Such type of test are referred as non-destructive testing. But when you come to radiography, or the simple one is, so most of the time, if you go to orthopedic shop, if there is some fracture, or if you have a doubt whether you might have fracture, etc., they'll do the X-ray. So once you see the X-ray, whether our bone is fractured or not, we can see. No need to physically, that is comes under non-destructive testing. The X-ray radiography is the one more method. It is also used for testing the defect in the metals. X-ray is also not only checking for our bones, etc., orthopedic shops. It is also used. It also comes under non-destructive testing. There are many non-destructive testings are there. As per your syllabus, you have to study 3. So one is magnetic particle testing. So one more is dye penetration testing, and one more is ultrasonic flaw detector. Those are the 3 tests as per syllabus you have to study. Out of those 3, the ultrasonic flaw detector, most of the time it is mainly used for the demonstration. It not comes for your test, but you have to conduct the test. Then Viva will be asked in the examination, or for the test you have to write the record, everything. But mainly 2. One is magnetic particle testing, and one more is dye penetration test. Those 2 comes under those 2 tests you are conducting. It will be there for your exam. I am talking about the exam. So in the case of non-destructive testing, the material is not destroyed by applying forces to check. We are not opening the material and check whether crack is present or not at a certain section. It's not happening in the case of non-destructive testing. So when you come to magnetic particle test, even you are in the 2018 scheme, those are really interested in non-destructive testing. In final year, 7th semester or 6th semester, there is one more elective subject itself. That is referred as non-destructive testing. Those are really interested, you can take that as an elective. That is considered non-destructive. There's complete one subject exclusively for non-destructive testing. If you go to National Aerospace Laboratories or ISRO or some HAL or some, especially for the spacecraft, some critical items. So those items are tested before mounting it onto the system or subsystem. Suppose there is a certain component. Suppose the component is made up of titanium alloy. We know what is the strength of the titanium alloy. All details we know. But Young's model is also known. Electrical conductivity is there. Strength, every parameter is known. Suppose without testing any defect is there or not, once component is produced before mounting it onto the component, some critical component of satellite or spacecraft, etc., then failure may occur. Even suppose space robots, without testing, no material may be already tested. You are using some aluminum component. Aluminum material is tested. We know all the properties, but before mounting it onto some critical component, I am talking about the space robot. It should be tested for crack or any internal defect, not non-destructive testing. You have to go for non-destructive testing instead of going for the destructive testing. So that's why there is a separate division in non-destructive testing. Is separate division itself. For your kind information, there are some centers in Bangalore. I'm not giving advertising for the centers. There are a few centers in Bangalore. They are giving that training around 1 week program or 2 week program or 3 week program only on non-destructive testing. They are the certified trainer. Even people come from the abroad, they will undergo training in Bangalore. Those who are really interested during vacation time, now you can do those training, especially after finishing your 3rd semester during vacation time. Those are really interested, you can contact me. I'll give the address, or even if you Google it also, non-destructive testing training centers in Bangalore. They'll charge few thousand, but it is worth and going and checking. This is one more area. So mechanical engineering, you can think about. There's one more area you can think about jobs in that particular area. There's one more job providing area. Because most of the fabrication shop or companies, even after construction of the huge structure, if it is made of a welded structure, they'll check whether the structure is having defect or not. For that, they have to go for non-destructive testing. Most of the time, those are handheld devices. So they're handheld devices. They'll test after welding, after fabrication, not without destroying. And so one more avenue you have to get job. Many jobs are available, but you should have thoroughly studied fundamentals during your UG course. And if you do some training, 1 week training or 15 days training or 1 month training, so then many students they undergone training and they got jobs in some other countries also. Or those who worked in other countries, they are coming here during 1 month. When they come to their other hometown, they'll finish the courses, they'll go. There are some our own students. I'm giving the example. I'm not giving the example of others. Why I'm telling is non-destructive testing or magnetic particle testing should not think it is only 10 minutes experiment or 15-minute experiment. The lab you may do the experiment of only 10 to 15 minutes experiment. It has its own area, its own application, its own job providing. There are many job providing industries, even GE or many aerospace industries. Before imagine you are given the order of supplying around 10 to 15 component. So you have to give the after manufacturing that. So one who given the order, they'll check by using non-destructive testing, not by destructive testing, whether your casting is correct or your forging any defect is there in the forging, or machining there is excessive scratches or overloading, there may be some cracks, etc. All those will be tested. Then only they'll take it back. There is a company, they'll come, there is a quality control division. Other than quality control division, within the subdivision of quality control, there is a one more area. They'll test the component in all respect, not only the dimension or machining process. They'll test all components. Now, when you come to your magnetic particle testing, so you studied electromagnetic fluxes. So imagine we have the conductor, the metal. Imagine it is a metal is it will be steel. Steel is a ferromagnetic material. So we can magnetize the material. So once it is magnetized, so you can imagine there is a magnetic fluxes of lines move from one end of the specimen to the other end of the specimen, depending upon north or south pole. So if there is no crack, what will happen is the all electromagnetic lines will move in the same direction without changing the direction. In this, let it be all electromagnetic forces. We can imagine it all are in the parallel to each other. It is moving in the straight line. If there is no crack in the material, because it is a solid metal, there is some other similar to electrical conductivity or thermal conductivity. Other properties also there with respect to electrical properties. The electrical properties of the homogeneous material. I'm talking about the homogeneous material. Imagine you have the steel component. It is homogeneous. So mechanical properties are uniform. Electrical properties also uniform. Thermal conductivity properties also uniform. That type of materials are referred to homogeneous material. There is a heterogeneous material, like your sandwich. Sandwich is an example for the heterogeneous material. The top surface, top and bottom, the material is different. Inside material is different. That is sandwich. It is a heterogeneous material. If you consider only the bun, it is a homogeneous. Just I'm giving example. In the similar way, metals also homogeneous material and heterogeneous material. So we are making an assumption that so material undergo uniform deformation, or even mechanics of material also you are assuming that the material is homogeneous. You are using so many equations, even Hooke's law also. The first assumption you are making is the material is homogeneous. Material is isotropic. Isotropic means its property in all directions are same, in x direction, y direction, and z direction. So those are the assumptions. So if material is homogeneous, the electrical property is uniform, all magnetic lines of fluxes. Here, I'll show some sketches, schematic sketches. All magnetic lines of fluxes are moving in a straight line parallel to each other when there is no defect in the material. Suppose if there is a defect, so magnetic lines of forces will move whenever there is a defect. Imagine it's a crack. There is a air path. It will not take the air path. It will take the metallic path itself. So whenever we are taking moving from metal magnetic lines of forces moving from metal to air, it will not take the air path. It is try to find out nearby metallic part. So that means magnetic lines of fluxes, instead of moving the straight line parallel to each other, it will slightly bend. So wherever there is a bending occurs, electromagnetic forces, if suppose if there is some powders are put on the surface of the metal, because of the change in direction of the electromagnetic forces lines, there is a disturbance in the powder. Powder is not like a sand powder, etc. It's a ferromagnetic material. If a ferromagnetic powder is disturbed on the surface of the metal, then we can say that there is a defect. It's a basic concept involved in magnetic particle testing. If material is homogeneous, if there is no crack, if there is no defect, all electromagnetic lines of forces or magnetic fluxes are parallel to each other and moving the straight line from one end of the specimen to the another end of the specimen. If there is an air gap or crack, etc., instead of moving a straight line, it will take some curved path or it will deviate from the straight line. So wherever there is a deviation on the top surface, already you have put some ferromagnetic material. So instead of the magnetic flux lines moving in the air path, it will take the powder path. Because of that, there is a disturbance in the powder. It is already put on the surface. Because only those regions you can identify there is a crack or disturbance in the powder. Before that, what I'll do is I'll show the video first, then I'll explain the concept. That is a better thing, so that at least I'll explaining you can understand better. First, I'll show the video. You may not understand, but first I'll show the video. Then at the end, I'll once again I'll replay the video. Is it video? Can you see the video?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So this is nothing but your so this is the ferromagnetic powder you are spraying on the specimen. This is the specimen. This is the specimen. We can see the steel specimen, and over the steel specimen, so he is spraying powder. He is our instructor, Mr. Venkatesh. He is spraying the ferromagnetic material. He is spraying the ferromagnetic material. That is the first phase. So now this particular specimen is not magnetized. So one of the important point you have to remember when you come to the magnetic particle testing is this magnetic particle inspection It is also referred as MPI in short form. When you go to industry, they'll say MPI. No one is asked magnetic particle inspection. They don't have time to tell all those things. Say MPI. Go ahead with MPI. So MPI means magnetic particle inspection. So you have to magnetize the material. So, but at present it is not magnetized. We have yoke type magnetic particle testing machine to magnetize the material. Only when it is magnetized, then so there is a magnetic fluxes of lines which is flows inside. You can imagine magnetic fluxes of lines flows in the material. That's the purpose you are using. You have to magnetize one. There are two aspects you have to remember when you conduct. Conducting a test is not. It will not take much time. Hardly it is only 4 to 5 minutes, or 2 to 3 minutes. Also we can finish the test. But when you getting this type of test in the examination or test, so they'll ask the Viva questions. Why you have to go for the magnetizing? Why you have to go for magnetizing? Without magnetizing, can you identify the crack? That type of questions arise. That's why I'm explaining more. That means you have to magnetize the material. To magnetize the material, you are using yoke type magnetic particle tester. Then to find out, because wherever there is a crack or defect in the material, there may be disturbance in the powder spreader, because he is spraying the powder. I think already you have seen. I think 1 second update. So now you can see he is spraying the powder. The purpose of spraying the powder is, so whenever there is a crack in the material, so there is a crack is nothing but a air gap. That is, air gap is present inside the material. On the surface of the material, there is a ferromagnetic powder. So this electromagnetic flux lines will not pass through the air gap. It is try to follow the solid material or solid ferromagnetic material. So what powder he is spraying, it is again a ferromagnetic powder. It is not a regular any other metal powder, non-ferrous material powder. It should be the ferromagnetic powder only. It is that powder is referred as a Magnaflux. The company name and the powder is also referred as a Magnaflux. So once Magnaflux is sprayed on the specimen, and once the specimen is magnetized, afterwards that specimen is to be magnetized. Once it is magnetized, then wherever the crack is there, it will take the path, the magnetic lines of forces or flux lines. Instead of taking air path, it will take the powder path on the outer side. Because of change in direction of the magnetic flux line, only those parts of the material there is a disturbance in the powder. There is no uniform distribution. Initially, the powder is sprayed uniformly. Once specimen is magnetized, wherever there is a crack, etc., there is a redistribution of the powder or magnetic particle powder. It is sprayed on the specimen. Wherever there is a disturbance, that those area indicate there is a defect. From this test, we cannot identify what is the depth of the crack, what is the size of the crack. Only one observation you can make, whether material is having crack or not, mainly on the surface crack, not subsurface crack. If there is a crack in the surface or some small depth of 0.1 or 0.2 mm, it is identified, not the depth crack in around 5 mm depth or 6 mm depth or 10 mm depth. In such cases, you have to go for one more test. That test is referred to the ultrasonic fraud detector. That is mainly used for the crack in the subsurface of the material, or at a depth of more than 1 or 2 mm or 3 mm, we can find out by ultrasonic fraud detector. Now what he is conducting is first spraying the powder. After spraying the powder, you have to magnetize the specimen. For magnetize the specimen, they use yoke type magnetic particle tester. Now you can see the video.
So after the yoke is there now, put it, that is his mind state, the yoke. So 1, 2, 3 times you press it.
Now, this is a yoke type magnetic particle tester. It is mainly used for magnetizing the specimen. Earlier, before, after putting the powder, then you have to go for magnetizing. For that magnetizing, this arrangement is used, or yoke type magnetic particle testers are used. Main purpose of this test is this instrument is it will magnetize the ferromagnetic material, most of the time steel or alloys of the steel. So once it is magnetized, then only we can observe some magnetic flux lines and disturbance in the powder.
After slowly you can remove. After say this magnet, say crack is there, you observe it, crack is there.
See here, I think my audio is audible. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So already powder is sprayed here. You can see already once it is magnetized, even whatever the powder is sprayed around also, that is realigned themselves. Don't bother with on the metal surface. So we have sprayed the powder uniformly. But imagine your magnetic lines of fluxes are moving like this, but there is a crack here. So whenever there is a crack, it will try to take the path of powder. So whenever it will take the curved path, or whenever it deviates from the straight line, so then there is a disturbance in the powder. On the powder or magnetic particle powder, it is sprayed on the surface. That disturbance we can clearly visible. We don't use any other instrument to find out the disturbance. We can see here. So earlier it is uniformly distributed. Like here also it is uniformly distributed. Here also uniformly distributed. Here there is it is not a crack is not visible from naked eye. So that's why you are putting powder. So once you put the powder, so we can see the disturbance in the powder. Wherever there is a disturbance, that disturbance is clearly visible and distinct. In that area there is a crack. Only you can say that there is a crack in this area of the specimen. You cannot get what is the size of the crack, what is the depth of the crack. That's the main principle used in magnetic particle testing.
Sometimes 2 or 3 holes is there, sometimes 2 3 holes will come, sometimes 1 will come. Check the cracks is there, this position is there. This is magnetic particle test.
Okay, I think a very simple principle. I think you understood. I hope you understood the concept used in magnetic particle testing. This is a specimen before magnetization. So this is magnetic powder, magnetic particle powder, or it is also referred as ferromagnetic powder. It is also ferromagnetic powder. This is the magnetic particle testing equipment. It is referred as PPT is visible? Yes or no? Is it visible? Someone has to answer.
Is
it PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Because when you're moving from this video mode to PPT mode, sometimes PPT may not be visible. Because myself is attending some webinar, etc. We had some experience. The speaker will come continuously speaking, hoping that PPT is visible to all audience. That should not happen. That's why in between I am asking whether it is visible or not. I hope it is visible. Or if you can type in the chat box also. If you're not able to answer, just you will say yes. Ashit Kumar, yes or no? Okay. So it's a very simple test. It take only few minutes, but the only thing is you have to understand some fundamentals as you studied in your basic electrical science, even PUC physics also. You know all the electrical fundamentals. What is magnetism? What is ferromagnetic material? What are non-ferro? This non-ferrous material. All those only those questions may be asked. This is the equipment. So this is this already we have put powder. on the specimen already before magnetizing, the powder is uniformly distributed. This is a MagnaFlux powder. It is a ferromagnetic powder. The powder is available in different depending upon the requirement. So what this is a company name. It is referred to the MagnaFlux. It looks like a flux, and it is a magnetic particle used in magnetic particle testing. For that, they are given MagnaFlux. It is a magnetic particle, and color is red. This is the actual magnetic particle or ferromagnetic powder. So now when you come to go according to this part, it's available in your manual also. Magnetic particle inspection is a non-destructive testing that already you have discussed. It is used for detecting the surface, detecting the crack in the surface. One is, it is used for detecting the crack in the surface and slightly surface discontinuities. Even there is a crack is there, even it is surface, there is no crack. If crack is there around 0.1 mm or 0.2 mm depth, that also we can find out. That is what is subsurface. In the ferromagnetic material like iron, nickel, cobalt, and some other alloys. So as usual, you have to go for magnetized by a direct or indirect magnetization. What you are doing is, there are two way of magnetizing. We can use permanent magnet for magnetizing the material. One more is electromagnetism. So it is done by electrical power. That already was discussed about all this. Again, it is used for surface or subsurface discontinuity. Subsurface is just below the surface, or referred as a subsurface, not at a depth of 2 centimeter or 3 centimeter. Imagine there is a steel plate of thickness 10 centimeter. If the crack is there at a depth of 5 centimeter, that is not referred as a subsurface. If the crack is there at a depth of 1 mm or 0.3 mm, or then only we can say it is a subsurface. There may be crack may be present on the surface, but here those of the cracks are after the airline cracks. All cracks are there in the present in the subsurface level at a depth of 0.1 to 1 mm. That is referred as subsurface. Then we can go for magnetic particle testing. If the thickness of the specimen is very more, like 10 centimeter, 15 centimeter, if the crack is at the mid of the specimen of a depth of 6 centimeter or 5 centimeter, then we cannot go for magnetic particle testing. That is the disadvantages of magnetic particle testing. One is depth is the one disadvantage, and second one is it can be used only for magnetic material, not non-magnetic material, or it can be used only for the ferrous material and ferrous alloys. We cannot use it for aluminum, copper, or some other material. Now, this principle I already explained. From South Pole to North Pole, once this is a specimen, already you have seen the specimen. Once specimen is magnetized, then magnetic flux lines moves from South Pole to North Pole. So if there is no defect in the material, you can see a magnetic field lines are moving parallel. It is only the schematic diagram. Don't think that like an arrow it moves. It is not like that. This one is the schematic sketch. Or you can say when ferromagnetic, typically iron or steel, is defect free, it will transfer lines of magnetic flux through the material without any interruption. There is no interruption here because the material is homogeneous, no defect, no crack. There are two types. One is dry particle test and one more is wet test. But what you have seen is dry because we are using the powder. It is in the dry form. Then it is after a dry particle MPI. We are using the powder. It is dry. Hence, it is after dry particle magnetic testing. But powder can be used because sometimes powder may fly out from the surface because of the wind, etc. In such cases, you have to use the wet powder. We can use the dry powder or wet powder. That depending on what type of material, what is the surface contour, what is the width of the material, length of the whether it is flat or whether the surface is vertical. Depending upon that, you have to go for wet type or dry type. Now you can say that Here you can see here, there is a crack. Already explained the principle. This is a crack. So all your magnetic lines of forces are moving parallel to the straight line. So whenever it comes very close to the crack, it will take the different path. Instead of taking straight path, it will try to take the different path. You can see it slightly deviates from the straight line. Here also it will slightly deviate from the straight line. There are some magnetic lines on the top surfaces or subsurface. So here, because of crack, because on the top already powders are there, it will try to take the path on the powder itself, because powder is the magnetic material. Because powder, there is a magnetic lines will flows fastly, so it will try to take this path. So whenever this magnetic fluxes takes path over the powder, then there is a disturbance in the magnetic powder. Because of the disturbance, so it will lose the homogeneity of the surface. Already uniformly powder is distributed. So whenever powder is disturbed because of these magnetic lines of forces, then there is a disturbance in the powder. Because of the disturbance in the powder, we can clearly visible. So from that, we can conclude that the magnetic particle, the specimen is having defect or defect free. This is one more photograph taken from the net. This is the actual yoke type magnetic particle testing. What machine you are using in our material testing laboratory, it also comes under yoke type magnetic particle testing. The procedure already you know. First you have to magnetize the component, then you have to apply the magnetic particle on the component, then you have to locate the defect. Wherever there is a defect, there is a non-uniform distribution of the magnetic particle powder. Advantage, so it can detect both surface as well as subsurface defect. These are the Viva questions. So sometimes they don't ask, may not ask like advantages or disadvantages. They may ask whether magnetic particle testing is used for surface detection of surface cracks or subsurface crack. If you say only surface crack, then our answer is partially correct. If you say only subsurface, it is again partially correct. But to get good marks, you have to say it is used for detecting both surface as well as subsurface defect. If the specimen thickness is very, very small, then it can be used for both surface as well as subsurface. If the thickness is bigger, more and more, like to 10 centimeter, then magnetic particle testing can be used for finding out only the surface crack, not subsurface crack or crack at the midpoint at a depth of 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters. It is very difficult to find out. Then pre-cleaning of the component is not essential, because just you are spraying. There are some tests. So cleaning the surface is required. Surface finish should be very high. But in here, the cleaning is not so. Pre-cleaning is required before in the test. But it is high level of cleaning is not required. You cannot use. No need to use some high fine MED powders, because sometimes you have to clean the surface very nicely. There are some tests, especially in ultrasonic fraud detector. The surface finish should be very, very high. Then fast method, it is very fast, it will not take much time. Consider low cost, the cost of the equipment is also not very high, it may be 25 to 30,000. Limitation, one of the limitation is it can be used only for, it is like your Viva, this is like a quiz. They may ask what are the limitation of magnetic particle inspection. You have to say it cannot be used for non-ferrous material. Example like aluminum, magnesium, or most stainless steel. Non-ferrous is wrong. There is a stainless steel. Most of the stainless steels comes under ferrous material. But first, aluminum and magnesium, those are not comes under ferrous material. And if the component is very large, then you cannot use your ultrasonic flag detector. You can use this magnetic powder testing. The limited surface discontinuity detection possibility. If there is a defect in the surface level, then it is very, we can find out from this. Maximum depth sensitivity is around 0.6 inch. If the crack is present below the depth of 0.6 inch, then it is very difficult. Sometimes it may defect, sometimes it may not detect. If the defect is there at a depth less than 0.6 inch, then it will defect. And post cleaning is also required. Because of the magnetization, already material is magnetized. If you hold it for a long period of time, its material is already magnetized. Even you are in the children, we are doing that. In the schools, they used to give this permanent magnet pieces. You try to magnetize small steel pieces or iron pieces. So now already it is magnetized. Even though you are taking out the machine or a magnetic particle tester, still the material is magnetized. Then we have to go for one more process, that is demagnetization after testing. That is also required, and cleaning of the powder is also required, because sometimes the surface finish is also very important. Your question already we have discussed. The principles already we have discussed. There are different types and method of magnetization. One, we can use permanent magnet, or we can go for electromagnetic type. Application, new industrial application. Any application involves ferrous material and surface crack or subsurface crack. How yoke type magnetic crack detector works? What you have seen is only the yoke type magnetic crack detector. Already that is the same principle already we have explained. Precaution to be taken during magnetic crack detection. Surface should be cleaned properly because it involves a huge electrical current. We should be careful about electric current. And insulation, if the insulation is removed, you have to go get it corrected. For repeated use, because of the repeated use, there is the electrical wires. They should be very careful. Limitation of the magnetic particle detection. Once you say limitation, so then it is mainly for, it cannot be used for testing non-magnetic material. You cannot use it for testing aluminum, copper, zirconia, zinc, etc. What are the advantages of magnetic particle testing? Already we have discussed about advantages. Previous slide is mainly on advantages. Here, both surface and subsurface defect can be used, and time required is also very less. And direct no special equipment is required. Only if you have a yoke type magnetic flaw detector, that is sufficient. Those are the advantages. Can use magnetic flaw detector in the measurement of flaws in non-ferrous material. Can we use magnetic particle inspection (MPA) for non-ferrous material? No, you cannot use it. It can be used only for material. It can be magnetized. In general term is, it can be used only for the materials which can be magnetized. Can you use the magnetic flaw detection for subsurface and internal flaw detection? There is a difference between subsurface and internal flaw detection. The subsurface is just below the surface, but internal means at a depth of 2 mm or 3 mm or 4 mm, it is referred to depth internal flaw detection. It cannot be used for internal flaw detection. It can be used only for subsurface flaw detection. We can say that magnetic particle flaw detection can be used only for the subsurface as well as surface flaw detection, not for internal flaw detection. There is no definite boundary, but subsurface means it is at a depth of few mm. That is referred as a depth surface. Now, once again, I'll show this video. So now I think you can understand better. Then we'll go for one more test.
This is your, this is material. Material is one is a magnetic particle powder is there. Magnetic particle powder. This is a reddish color is there, magnetic particle powder. See, observe, fix it. Again, so material. Magnetic particle is, this is your, this is material. Material is one is a magnetic particle powder is there. Magnetic particle powder. This is a reddish color is there, magnetic particle powder. See, observe, fix it. Again, so material, fix it, material, and yoke is there, one switch is there, and AC/DC current is there. AC wave. Next, yoke is there. See, you fix it. Or once is there, you slant it, you press it, powder. So after, so yoke is there now. Okay, that is his mind state. So yoke. So 1, 2, 3 times you press it. 3 times you fix it. After slowly yoke will become. After see this mind, so say crack is there now. You observe it. Crack is there. Crack. Sometimes 2 or 3 holes is there, sometimes 2, 3 holes will come, sometimes 1 hole will come. See, cracks is there, this position is there. This is magnetic particle test.
I hope no doubt about this. If you have any doubt about magnetic particle testing, we can discuss. So otherwise, go for one more test. Just wait, I am opening the PPT. So next is already we discussed about fatigue, and why I am stressing more on this fatigue is it is required for your material science also. There is a one second module. If you are able to understand there is a failure of material, one is fatigue, one more is fracture, one more is creep. Once you understand this fatigue and remaining second module of your material science, you can understand better. So with respect to experiment, I'll explain. So there is important terms you have to remember is, just I am summarizing. There are 2 types of loads. So one is static load, like your building beams are subject to fatigue for the static load. A simple example is the fan rod. When fan is switched off, it is subject to static load. When fan is running, it is not subject to static load. Or vehicle, when it is engine is stopped, vehicle is also stopped. Then it is every component of the engine may be subject to static load. But when vehicle is moving, in such cases, the components of the engine or different components of the vehicle are subject to dynamic loading. There is a one type of dynamic loading, or one category of the dynamic loading. That dynamic loading is referred as a fatigue load. Fatigue load. The fatigue, in the sense, there is a stress reversal or cyclic loads or cyclic stresses. When material is subject to cyclic load or cyclic stresses, then such of a loading is referred as a cyclic fatigue loading. You are familiar with the sinusoidal curve? Topmost, you have a sinusoidal curve. It goes to the peak, it comes down, its magnitude becomes 0, then it comes to negative side. So when you come to your material science or your fatigue testing, upper part is referred as imagine your stress fluctuates between plus 100 megapascal to minus 100 megapascal, means the topmost peak point of the sinusoidal curve is plus 100. Below the your reference line x-axis, there is a below peak, bottom peak, that is minus 100 megapascal. Why you are using minus is, it is plus indicates tensile stress, negative indicates the compressive stress. Or we can say that the stress in the component fluctuates between two limit from minus 100 megapascal to plus 100 megapascal. So that type of stresses are referred as a cyclic stresses. When stress comes below, so when if you consider that type of loading, the strength may be very, very less. When it is subject to static loading, it may take around 200 megapascal, but when it's subject to dynamic loading or cyclic stresses, it may not take such an amount of loading. Even it can take around 100 kg of load when it is in the static 50 kg of load, that will be 125 kg of load. When component is subject to static loading, it can take 25 kg of load. When it is subject to dynamic loading of with the same 25, it may fail because of the fatigue, because of the cyclic stresses. Best example I can give you is, you can understand better is, imagine you have the bamboo stick. It may weigh only 10 grams, maybe 50 grams. If you keep your bamboo stick in your head, so you will not feel any stress. Imagine your friend is playing with you, is hitting your head with the same bamboo stick. It weighs only 50 grams. Repeatedly, if it hits, you will be strained. But if you're keeping just on your top head, same 50 grams, so we will not fail. But if you repeatedly hit with the same bamboo stick, don't do that. Just I'm giving an example. You should feel what is fatigue stress in the material, or what is fatigue stress in your body. When he repeatedly hit with the same bamboo stick, the weight is almost same, force is also same. But in such cases, that particular member may be subject to fatigue loading. And for the static loading, it may take around 20 kg of load. But when you come to fatigue loading, it will not take 20 kg of load. It may end with only taking maximum amount of 5 kg. The strength of the material when it is subject to static loading is, that it be 50 megapascal. When the strength of the material when it is subject to dynamic loading is only 25 megapascal. A simple way, you can carry the load, you can stand at one place, you can carry 50 kg of load, but someone is tell to run. By carrying the same 50 kg of load, you cannot run, but you can run comfortably with carrying only the 25 kg of load. That means that indicate that you are running with carrying 25 kg of load. Your fatigue strength is the 25 kg or 25 kilonewton. 25 into 10 means 250 newton of load. But when you come to static, we can carry 50 kg of load. That is the difference between the fatigue strength. So what strength you are getting from your tensile test or compression strength, it is almost like a static loading. The load is applied very, very slowly, and it is a steady load. The behavior is different. When you apply suddenly, then behavior is different. Sudden application load is, or repeated load is, somehow, suppose if you keep 1 kg of weight on your head, so it will not affect you, it will not injure your head. But if you drop the same 1 kg of weight from the 10 feet height or 5 feet height, it may damage your head, because that comes under dynamic loading. That's also one more example of the impact loading. Static load, it can carry 1 kg of load. When you come to fatigue load, it cannot carry 1 kg of load. When it is subject to Dynamic loading, it may not carry 1 kg of load. Instead of 1 kg, it can carry only 10 grams or 100 grams. That's why same material, its static strength is different and its dynamic strength is different. To find out the dynamic strength, especially when it is subject to cyclic stresses, then you have to go for fatigue testing machine. I will not go in details. Already you have discussed with some photos. This is the photos already you have seen. To measure the cyclic loading, there is a counter to find out what is the cyclic loading or how many times the stress is reversed from minus 100 megapascal to plus 100 megapascal. There is a counter. How much load is applied? It is finally, it is in the terms of stresses. So we have load arrangement. One more is speed. The rotate is rotating beam, because to apply cyclic stress, if the beam is not rotating, then it comes under static loading. Or already you have conducted one test, that is referred as a bending test. If beam is not rotating, if you apply a certain amount of load, it comes under bending test. It not belongs to the fatigue test. In the fatigue test, the beam is rotating. This is a specimen. This is a broken specimen because it comes under non-destructive testing. This broken specimen cannot be reused. It cannot be mounted on some component, subsystem or system. Hence, it comes under non-destructive testing. This is arrangement for mounting, that everything is seen. This is again arrangement of the mounting. So it should be, specimen should be mounted properly. The surface finish of the specimen should be very high, especially for the fatigue testing. This is a weight. This is specimen fixing. For the experimental procedure that already you have discussed. Then when you come to fundamental of fatigue, being a mechanical engineer, you have to remember there are 3 types of failure. One is failure by fracture, one more failure by fatigue, one more is failure by creep. So fracture, you can understand the specimen. There is a difference between fracture and fatigue. In magnetic particle testing, there is a crack is there, already crack is there. On specimen, already crack is there. When it is subject to loading, crack will propagate or it become bigger and bigger. So finally, material may fail. That is what is a fracture. But imagine there is a specimen, there is no crack. The material is homogeneous. When it is subject to cyclic loading, that will be same example I am giving, from minus 100 megapascal to plus 100 megapascal or Newton per mm square, then the new crack will be nucleated in the material. I am talking about the nucleation of the crack in the case of fatigue testing machine. So when material is subject to fatigue loading, the crack will nucleate. But when you come to fracture, there is a micro crack is there in the material. When it is subject to loading, the crack will propagate. Or we can say that whenever there is a fracture, once you say fracture, so already small crack is there, micro crack or airline crack. When it is subject to impact loading or some excessive loading, it may fail. Even if some people are met with accident, their bone may break, leg bone. So that means already there is a minute cracks in the material, bone itself, or airline cracks, or some defect is there. Maybe say, we can say it is a material is porous. Because of the porosity, there is an inbuilt defect. So whenever there is an impact load or whenever an accident happens, some leg may break. That it comes under the fracture. But fatigue means crack is nucleated. There is no crack initially. The crack is nucleated during the process of cyclic loading. Then it is referred as a fatigue loading. I will not go about other. Then microstructural changes. Again, complete the material science or material testing laboratory. There is one first experiment is on microstructure. You have to study the microstructure of different materials like copper, aluminum, bronze, steel, etc. Microstructure change. There is a change in microstructure. One plastic. You have discovered the plastic deformation. The two way, the plastic deformation takes place by slipping, or plastic deformation may takes place by pinning process. All will comes under plastic deformation. There's a grain growth. The grain means it may having around 100 unit cell. So during the process of solidification, instead of 100, some more nucleus may form, and finally instead of 100, it may grow to 200 or 300. Or if the grain size is, let it be 0.1 mm, during some treatment, the size may increases from 0.2 to 0.25. That is the growth. Once you say growth, financial growth means this year revenue may be only 100 crores for the company. Next year it may be only 110 crore. That is the growth, financial growth. In the similar way, there is a grain growth. Size of the grain may increase from 0.1 mm to 0.115 or 0.2 mm. That is the grain growth. That will happen only during heat treatment process. The grain size will be changes and shape will be changes during heat treatment process. That means, as per this slide is considered, 2 points you have to remember with respect to your material testing laboratory. There are two failure phenomena. One is fatigue and one more is fracture. During fatigue loading, the nucleus is created or nucleus is created or crack is propagated and nucleus is formed, and finally crack is generated in the material because of fatigue loading, and crack will propagate and failures. But when you come to fracture, there is a existing crack in the material itself. Before applying the load, there is a crack already in the material, defect. When it is subject to loading, crack will propagate and failure takes place. Then plastic deformation. When you come to plastic deformation, again, in the first module, you have the topic plastic deformation by twinning and plastic deformation by slip. So plastic deformation is nothing but we are applying the load. So we are applying the load such a way that it will undergo permanent set or permanent deformation. So there is a ASTM definition of fatigue. I am not going in detail about ASTM. It's a progressive, localized, permanent structural changes. Structural changes, it is referred to microstructural changes. Whenever crack is formed, whole material is not destroyed. Each and every part of the material crack will not form. Only at some part it may form and it may elongate, and finally the failure takes place. That is, one is progression of the process of progressive, localized, permanent structural changes occur in the material subject to conditions that produce fluctuating stresses. I am talking about the fluctuating stresses. Fluctuating means, I will give the same example, the stress value ranging from -100 to +100 megapascal. That is the fluctuating stresses or stress reversal at some point or point that may culminate in the crack or complete fracture after sufficient number of fluctuation. Fluctuation means nothing but a counter. There is a counter. Counter will find out how many rotation it happened. Don't worry about the exact definition, but at least remember some term. You can say fatigue only when material is subject to fluctuating stresses. That's one point. During the process of fatigue failure, the whole specimen may not break. Only at some point there is a localized deformation, permanent deformation, similar to your hardness testing. There are many theories out there how crack will propagate. Don't worry about those points. This is the grain. The crack may propagate inside the grain. It moves. Crack may move like this. That it is after the intragranular crack, or crack may propagate on the boundary. Then intergranular crack propagation or fracture. Again, everything will be depending upon your crack already existing in the material. You see identified crack in the specimen in magnetic particle testing. This crack may propagate or continue along the grain boundary. Here also it may continue. Here also it may continue. Now these are the grain boundary. This is the actual photograph. It is only required for your, don't think that it is only required for your material science. This empty lab, it is also required, some fundamentals are required for material sciences. This is the actual microstructure. You are studying microstructure in the first experiment. I am showing the microstructure also. Don't think that I am teaching only the fatigue. This is one grain, this is one more grain. These bright spots or areas comes under one phase. Phase means everything is solid phase. There are two phases. One is this white phase, PHASE phase, and one more is dark phase. So now, so imagine this is a grain boundary. At the grain boundary, some atom may jump. So because of jumping of atom from one grain to the another grinding, the crack may propagate and finally specimen may fail. This is, I may show the same thing in the single crystal. The fracture in the single crystal will be slightly different. This is a diamond crystal or it's a single crystal. There is only grain boundary. This complete is the grain boundary. It is only one crystal. But if you keep the same metal piece of metal of this shape, imagine you are done by machine shop. So this metal piece, this size metal piece consists of maybe 100 or thousands of crystals, because metal comes under polycrystalline material, but it is a single crystal in the case of the diamond crystal. So this fatigue is very, very important, because most of the turbine blades, these are the steam turbine blades or gas turbine blade, that may be subject to fatigue loading. These are the turbine blades I am accompanying, because turbine blades are subject to fatigue loading because those are run at higher speed continuously for over a period of time. And this is the microstructure. I am talking of the grain or crystal. These are the crystal or grain. This is one grain. This grain in terms of many FCC unit or BCC structure. There is a small circles, this circular shapes. This is one grain. This is one more grain. This is one more grain. Grains are not uniform. This is only the schematic sketch. When it is subject to fatigue loading, the size of the grain may changes and shape of the grain may changes. This is the example of turbine blades will be subject to huge amount of. There is a plastic deformation. There are by two methods. One is slip and one more is twinning. That is a part of your first test syllabus, first module. Plastic deformation by slip and twinning. It is mentioned in the syllabus. There may be some plastic phase transformation. Those things you don't understand. Time being, there are two types of deformation. One is plastic and then one more is elastic. The plastic deformation may be caused by slipping or dislocation motion or twinning. Timing, if you remember, that's sufficient. The process of fatigue, how specimen break, you have seen one is unbroken specimen and one more is broken specimen. These are the grains, and this is the stage 2 fatigue crack. Imagine somewhere here crack is formed. When it is run further 1 hour or 2 hours, the crack will propagate. You can see this is the propagation of the crack along the grain boundary. This timing I will skip. I have to explain in with respect to material science. This is, so this is a specimen. When it is subject to fatigue loading, it runs for a few thousand rotation or the 10,000 rotation. Inside the material, a lot of changes happen. Because of that, material fails. In the microstructure level, a lot of changes occur. It's a slip lines are clearly visible. These are the slip line. The plastic deformation by slipping. Slipping in the sense, imagine we have what you call 10 sheets of paper. If slightly press the sheets, it may slip also. That is what is slipping. We have different planes. You have the 10 sheets of paper. So each 10 sheets of one paper is separated by one more paper by interface. That will come as a slip. If you slightly push it, the one paper may slide over the another paper. That is referred as slipping when you come to your fatigue loading. Because of slipping in the material, the fatigue crack may propagate. We can see here how slipping takes place. So now these are the grains. We have a original specimen, it is not deformed. So whenever it is subject to fatigue loading, there is a one weak element in the material or weak grain. This is a weak grain. This weak grain will, because when it is subject to continuous stress reversal, so crack may initiate about this region and it may propagate like this. So that is a weaker link or weaker grain, because we have chain link. If one link is weaker, whole chain may fail. In the similar way, there may be hundreds of grains. If there are few grains are weaker, because of this weaker grain, fatigue loading continue and failure takes place. I will not go in details. Imagine we have n number of grains. Whenever you're talking about the grain, the fatigue test, you have to understand more and more of fundamental, because it is not asked in the examination. In the examination, they may ask only YY about fatigue testing machine. Even it is required for your material science also. There is a 1 weak crystal, it is a grain. This is one grain, this is one more grain, this is one more grain, this is one more grain. So whenever it is subject to loading, cyclic loading, so then this weak crystal, your crack will propagate on the weak crystal. Wherever there is a weak crystal, crack will propagate. The best example, there are, imagine there are, I should not give such type of example, what is weak element. 1,000 people are affected by corona, but around 1 or 2, around 1% of the patient may be weaker, they may be aged, or they may have some diseases like some lungs disease or some heart problem. They may die in during the corona positive cases. Because so here also, even though they all in grains are, you are saying it is a perfectly correct, there may be some grain may be weaker. Because of this weaker grain, whenever it is subject to fatigue loading, rotation or cyclic loading, so crack may generate here and it may propagates. So these are the actual photographs. It may be in terms of few microns. This is schematic sketch. This is schematic sketch. You can understand yellow is one grain or one phase. This color is one more phase. Reddish is one more phase. This is the actual photograph. This is 5 micron. This size is 5 micron. Your crack will propagate, micro crack. The crack will originate here and it will propagate, and finally it is a localized crack. This crack is not there throughout the material. Hence, the definition itself, it says the fatigue is progressive crack propagation or deformation, localized plastic deformation. Hence, it is referred as highly localized dislocation network. You don't understand dislocation. Dislocation means one-dimensional defects are referred as dislocation. So even though whenever when you're conducting tensile test, you're going to conduct tensile test. These are the grain in the specimen. Only this portion is enlarged. The size of the grain, we have grain, it will be elongated. When it is pulled, it is elongated. When it is pushed, then it will be compressed. So finally, the macroscopic failure in the material, what you are studying in your mechanics of material, that is mainly because of change in the size of the grain or change in the shape of the grain. This is the photograph. These are the multi-origin fatigue. The fatigue is taken place at different point. This is one fatigue location. This is one more fatigue location. This is a crack. We are saying micro crack. In magnetic particle testing, we can find out only the macroscopic crack. This micro detection of the micro cracks, we have to go for special electron microscope. That is about a scanning electron microscope. The fine, very, very fine crack that cannot be identified by your tool maker microscope. What microscope you have in our lab, then you have to go for scanning electron microscope. That will be costly. Even BMSC, they have a scanning electron microscope. It costs around 80 lakhs to 1 crore. The basic model is 80 lakhs to 1 crore. If you're going for high-end model, it may be around 2 to 3 crores. Okay. That is a costly. Microstructure and material character in itself is a costly. So then now crack is formed here. There is a crack formation. So we can see here metallic slag. We are studying about metallic slag in your casting. So even if it is not casted properly, there is a metallic slag. Because of this metallic slag, the fatigue failure takes place here. We can see here there is some inclusions. There are some impurities. Cyclic hardening, you don't understand now. Cyclic slip. This is the actual photograph. This size may be around 1 mm or 2 mm, to 1 micron or 2 micron. These are the different grain. This is one grain, this is one more grain. Complete material science, or when you come to material testing laboratory, failure, everything you are discussing in terms of microstructure. These are the microstructure. This is again microstructure. This is one phase. Later stage you are discussing about the phase. This is light phase. This is darker phase. You can see here. This is one phase. Whenever it is subject to loading, so your crack may take place in the micron level. It may be 0.1 micron or 0.2 micron that you can see. At certain point, crack will be generated or nucleated when it is material subject to fatigue loading. Then there is some method we can increase the strength of the material. That is nothing but a dispersioning. The dispersioning is nothing but, imagine we have only mud. If we have the only mud, it may not have sufficient strength. I think you can understand, as a common man, you can understand. In the ground, if there is only mud, if you put only mud, red soil, it's not having good strength. If you mix mud with some small stones or bigger sand particle, then it's having sufficient strength. Strength of the mud or soil is increased by adding small stones or stone particles or sand, then strength is increased. In the similar way, if it is a pure metal or just alloy, if the strength is less, we can add some ceramic particle or like a ceramic particle like a silicon carbide or L2O3, alumina, etc. Those are ceramic material. If you add ceramic material when it is in the molten state, so then strength is increases. In simple analogy is, if it is most of them you are playing cricket or volleyball, whatever maybe, if you put only red soil, soil is not so strength. If you put some sand particle, sand or small stones, strength of the whole soil will increases. In the similar way, if you use only the metal, only copper or copper alloy, strength may not be sufficient. Along with copper, if you add some more ceramic material or some other material, strength may increase. We can see here, those are the dispersion strengthening. That is what dispersion strengthening. To increase the fatigue limit, they will go for the dispersion strengthening. There is a precipitation strengthening that you not understand now. So especially fatigue life, you can see this is like your connecting rod. Connecting rods are subject to fatigue loading. Even crankshaft is subject to fatigue loading. Piston is subject to fatigue loading. Cylinder is subject to fatigue loading. If you use spooning spring gear, these are it is used in agriculture purpose or it comes under gardening tool. If one person is cutting the shrubs or plant, trimming the plant continuously for 2 hours or 3 hours, this spring, we can see the small spring. This small spring may be subject to fatigue. The spring may fail by fatigue. Because of porosity also, fatigue strength or strength of the material may decreases. There are many aircraft failed because of most of the aircraft component, because when you aircraft is running for moving from one country to the another country, maybe the few hours, 10-hour journey or 15-hour journey, those some critical component may be subject to fatigue loading. This is one of the example where metal fatigue was cause of failure, because complete aircraft is failed because of fatigue loading. I am not. So when bridges, vehicles are running continuously, repeatedly, then bridges are subject to cyclic loading. Because of this cyclic loading, the whole bridge may fail. It may not fail because of static loading. If you keep around 30 to 40 vehicles one side by side, the bridge may not collapse. But if only 5 vehicles are moving continuously from one end to the other end for 8 hours and 9 hours, it may fail because the bridge components are subject to fatigue loading. Now it is a crack. So you are conducting one more test, that is referred to the impact testing. This is referred to a notch. In the impact testing, it is referred to a notch. So you are applying the load, somewhere crack will form and it will propagate. This portion is referred to the notch. Crack will propagate and failure takes place. High temperature fatigue, don't worry about now. When temperature, especially for high steam turbine component, gas turbine component, even internal combustion engine component, there is a high temperature fatigue. Thermal fatigue again because of high temperature. Just I want to show some photos. This is referred to the grain. This is grain. This is the grain. Somewhere crack is formed on the surface. Crack propagates along the grain boundary, because I am using the grain boundary, grain, etc. It is required for your material testing laboratories also, material science also. So crack will propagate along the grain boundary, we can see it. So here, this is the schematic representation. This is the actual representation how crack propagates. this size, width of the figure is around, from this point to this point, total width is 200 micron meter. 200 micron means 200 divided by 1000 mm, that is 0.2 mm. From this point to this point, total width is 0.2 mm. So that means 0.2 mm, this side may be 0.001 mm. This is the schematic diagram how fatigue loading takes place, fatigue crack propagate. This is the actual diagram. These are the component where the turbine blades are subject to fatigue loading because steam is continuously flows over it, especially steam turbine and gas turbine. You can see how crack propagate in the material when the fatigue loading is taking place. There are some component fails because of fatigue loading. These are the steam turbine blades where subject is subject to fatigue loading. Here you can see heat damage blades because of continuous, especially the gas turbine. Those who comes under high temperature fatigue. And again, fatigue is mainly because of high temperature. There is a diffusion process. You are studying in the module 1 of the diffusion. Whenever temperature increases, atoms will get higher energy. Because of the higher energy, atoms are moving from one grain to the another grain. Because of that, maybe some defect. We can see this is one grain, this is one more grain. There is a slip plane, and this is the grain boundary. Now timing, it is a grain boundary. Whenever it is subject to loading, there may be slip plane where it slips. Slip plane is, I will gather example of slip plane means, imagine you are wearing some chappal, you try to walk on the wet floor, you may slip. There is a interface between the bottom part of the chappal and the floor. On that particular point, you will slip. That plane is referred as a slip plane. Even playing, when I think some of you are familiar with playing the cards also, the one card will slip over the another card. So if you apply certain amount of load on the sheet of paper, the one paper will slip over the another paper, another paper. That is referred as slipping. Your plastic deformation is mainly because of slipping. So that is finishes some fundamental aspect of fatigue loading. Other than even though it may not be there for your final exam, it is only demonstration, but lot of fundamentals you are required because it is you are using the fatigue concept you are using for another 2 or 3 subjects, and same concept you are studying in your material science. That's why I spent some more time to explain the fatigue, the grain boundary. Those terms are very, very important. If there is no any doubt, those who are if you have any doubt, you can clarify. Otherwise, I'll leave the class. If you have any doubt, today conclusion is we finished one test, that is magnetic particle testing. It comes under non-destructive testing, where material is not destructed, and it is mainly used for finding out surface crack and subsurface crack. So one more test we have discussed is fatigue test. It is again you have to find out the fatigue strength when material is subject to dynamic loading or stress reversal or repeated loading. So what is the strength of the material? You have to find out. That test is referred as a fatigue strength. There is one is static strength. You can carry 50 kg of load on your head, but someone beats with a 100-gram stick, you may not be able to withstand. You can withstand 50 kg of load, or you can carry, but you cannot withstand withstand by a person is hitting your head by only 50 grams weight of stick, because your head is subject to, your body is subject to fatigue loading. That is the difference between fatigue loading and static loading. Just to understand the concept, I have given the example. Don't give such of an example in the examination or viva. Simple way, imagine you have a metal, let it be steel. If the static strength of the steel is, let it be around 100 megapascal, but it is fatigue strength maybe only 30 megapascal or 40 megapascal. Even though static strength is 100 megapascal, when it is subject to repeated loading, it can withstand only 30 megapascal of stress reversal or 40 megapascal of stress reversal. That's why fatigue strength is also very, very important when there is a rotating member, especially internal combustion engine, steam turbine, fan blades or bearings, all will subject to fatigue loading. Those are the brief conclusion about what we have discussed in the today's class. If you have any doubt, you can discuss. Otherwise, you can leave. And material science first module, complete materials, printed material, I think already received by some other group. Just use that material. Still, I'll upload my handwritten notes, but my one advice is refer printed material. That is better because especially for the first module, second module, third module, it is according to your VTU syllabus itself. That is sufficient. For another 2 module, I'll give the notes, but still my handwritten notes I'll upload in the Google Classroom. Those printed material directly scanned from some certain textbook. Normally, we don't put it in the public domain. It can be used privately by yourself, not by us. Okay, if you have any doubt, you can clarify. Otherwise, you can leave. Today, I'm winding the class. Now it is a discussion time. I asked some questions about Viva questions also in magnetic particle testing. There is at each and every experiment, there are a set of Viva questions in your manual. Just try to understand the answer for those Viva questions. Try to get the answer. Similar type of Viva question you can expect in the examination. You know, each and every chapter there is a experiment. There are Viva questions I'll discuss. There is like a regular question and answer session, like a quiz for you. Even though we're not going for the regular Google class quiz. If those who don't have the doubt, you can leave. If you have the doubt, you can clarify.